were so right to send this research paper over about, new treatments for inflammatory diseases. I gotta say, I was taking a look earlier, and this is really fascinating stuff.
Oh, absolutely. What gets me is, it's a whole new way to think about inflammation. And you know how inflammation is connected to so many different health problems,
For
right?
sure. So the title of this paper, it's a bit of a mouthful, I'm not gonna lie. Copper regulates the canonical NLRP3 inflammasome, but it got published in the Journal of Immunology, so we know it's legit top-tier research. What I'm wondering is, what does it all mean?
So basically, this research is all about copper, the metal.
Yeah.
Turns out it's super important how our bodies react to threats, like if you get injured or if you've got an infection, that kind of thing.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. Our bodies have this system, right? The NLRP3 inflammasome.
Exactly. Think of it like a security system for your house. It senses danger, like someone breaking in, and boom, alarm bells. In your body, that alarm is inflammation.
So inflammation is how our body fights back, like calling for backup when there's a problem.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. In a lot of diseases, Alzheimer's, heart disease, even cancer, this alarm system, it gets stuck, like permanently switched on. You end up with chronic inflammation, and it actually starts doing more harm than good.
It's like that security system that won't stop blaring even after the threat is gone. Just chaos.
Perfect analogy. And that's where this new research comes in. They were testing out a drug called tetrathiomolybdate, TTM, sort of used for some copper-related stuff. But they discovered that TTM can work as an anti-inflammatory, but not in the way you'd think.
Usually we think of anti-inflammatories as meds that just reduce inflammation everywhere, right? This is different.
You got it. And that difference, that's what makes this so interesting. TTM doesn't just shut down inflammation everywhere. It's very specific. It targets that NLRP3 inflammasome, the one that's going haywire.
So instead of turning down the volume on the entire security system, it's like TTM lets us just hit mute on that one faulty sensor.
Exactly. Fewer side effects, a more targeted treatment. Really important for people dealing with chronic inflammation.
Targeted treatment is huge in medicine these days. How does it even work? What's copper got to do with it?
So TTM works by binding to copper in the body. And what these researchers found is that copper, it's essential for the NLRP3 inflammasome to work at all. Like copper is the key that turns the whole thing on.
And TTM, it takes that key away.
Exactly. TTM basically gets rid of the copper. So that alarm, it's way harder to trigger in the first place, but it gets even more interesting.
Oh, now we're talking.
The researchers actually found the exact spot where copper is doing its thing in this whole NLRP3 pathway. There's an enzyme called SOD1 superoxide dismutase 1, if we're being fancy.
Glad you clarified that one. Seriously, though, what does SOD1 actually do?
It's all about keeping our cells healthy. Our cells are constantly working, and when they do, they make these harmful molecules, like think of them as tiny bits of trash. SOD1 is part of the cleanup crew. It gets rid of those harmful molecules, protects the cell, keeps things running smooth.
So SOD1 is like the garbage disposal in our cells, just breaking down all that waste.
Exactly. But here's the thing. When you use TTM to remove copper from SOD1, it's like throwing a wrench in that garbage disposal. It can't work properly. Harmful molecules build up, and that's when problems start.
And because SOD1 isn't working right, the NLRP3 inflammasome gets affected.
You got it. The research shows that without copper, SOD1 can't function right. And as a result, the NLRP3 inflammasome is much less likely to activate.
So it's like we're blocking that whole inflammatory process right at the source. That's pretty amazing. But get this, and this is what I find so cool, TTM and this whole copper thing, it doesn't affect every cell the same way.
That's right. And that right there is really important. They seem to be particularly effective in these cells called macrophages. Have you heard of them?
Macrophages, yeah, they're a type of immune cell. Right.
They are. Think of macrophages as like first responders. They're these big, tough cells, always patrolling, looking for anything out of place. Bacteria, viruses, damaged cells, you name it. And when they find something, oh boy, they gobble it right up. No hesitation.
So they're like our body's own personal cleanup crew, huh? Always on the lookout for trash to take out.
Exactly. And like a good cleanup crew, they don't work alone. When macrophages run into a problem, they send out signals. It's like, hey, everyone, we've got a situation here. Brings in the whole immune system to help out.
So that's where our friend, the NLRP3 inflammasome, comes back in.
Bingo. Macrophages are actually one of the key places where the NLRP3 inflammasome is super important. When a macrophage's NLRP3 inflammasome gets activated, it's like, boom, all these powerful inflammatory signals go out, and the whole immune response kicks into overdrive.
Okay, I see where this is going. So By targeting the NLRP3 inflammasome, specifically in those macrophages, TTM can maybe quiet those inflammatory signals down.
Right at the source.
Now you're getting it. And that is what's so exciting about all of this. Because think about other immune cells, like monocytes. They have different jobs, right?
Yeah.
More like patrol officers, just keeping an eye out. They're important, but they don't need to sound the alarm as loud all the time.
So it's not just about reducing inflammation in general. It's about being precise, targeting those cells that are causing the biggest inflammatory responses.
Exactly. Just imagine being able to calm down those overactive macrophages, especially in diseases like Alzheimer's, where we know they're contributing to that brain inflammation. And we could do that without suppressing the entire immune system. That's a big deal,
Right, thanks.
especially when you think about the side effects of so many anti-inflammatory drugs out there.
It's like figuring out how to disarm just the crucial alarms instead of shutting down the whole security system. And yeah, I know this research is still pretty new, but the possibilities for conditions like Alzheimer's, heart disease, even cancer, where we see all this chronic inflammation, it's pretty remarkable. I bet this is what really gets you going. Imagine, in the future, instead of just dealing with inflammation after the fact, what if we could just, stop it from happening in the first place? Especially with something like Alzheimer's, right? You were saying those macrophages go kind of crazy. That could totally change how we treat these diseases.
It's huge, honestly.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show how intricate these systems in our bodies really are. This research, it's like a whole new understanding of how inflammation actually works, especially with these specific cells,
And to think this all goes back to, copper, which isn't something people usually connect with inflammation, is it? Makes you think. Copper's essential. Our bodies need it. So where does this leave us with, what we're eating?
That's a good question. And yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind. We know if you don't get enough copper, it causes problems. But now there's this research suggesting that too much, maybe that's a problem too, especially with these inflammatory things.
It's like that saying, everything in moderation.
Exactly. Seems like there's a sweet spot for copper. This study, they weren't focused on diet specifically, but it does make you wonder, what if we could, adjust how much copper we get? Could that help manage or even prevent some of these chronic diseases we've been talking about?
It's a really cool idea, and honestly, it could lead to a whole new area of research. I'm definitely going to be watching for more studies about this diet connection.
Me too. It just shows how much we still have to learn, which is what's so great about research like this. It's not just, oh, here's a new drug. It's about, really figuring out how our bodies work on a basic level.
Yeah.
And then we can use that knowledge to make treatments that are way more effective and way more targeted.
It's like we opened one door, and behind it, a whole hallway of other doors just waiting. This has been an amazing deep dive. We got into the nitty-gritty of the research, talked about what it could mean, and I have a feeling you've probably got even more questions now than when we started.
And those questions, they're what drive new discoveries. So yeah, keep asking those questions, keep learning. Who knows what we'll find out there.
That's what we're all about. So until next time, keep digging into the stuff that grabs your attention. You never know what's out there.